Hi folks, welcome to the second video for week 26. This time we are dividing those decimals. This is level 2 and this is the no calculator again. So we're going to divide decimals 1 to 3 decimal places. We need to have a quick reminder first, just to make sure we're absolutely fine on multiplying and dividing by 10. And then after that we're going to complete 5 examples of dividing decimals. After that, if you want to have some practice, there's some practice in the week 26 channel. Otherwise, you're just ready to go ahead and do the online Microsoft form and have a go at those questions for marking. Right, let's go. So how are we going to divide decimals? We need to actually multiply to get rid of that decimal point. And then once we've got rid of that horrible decimal point, we're just going to carry out a division. Sometimes we need to do this slightly differently, so we might multiply it on one side of the calculation, but then reverse it at the end. I think this will become more clear as we carry on. So a quick reminder about timesing by 10. If we want to multiply 0.6 by 10, we are taking the decimal point and we are moving it one place value to the right, so then we end up with 6.0. When you have a 0.0 just on its own, we don't actually need that 0.0. You would be safe just to not put it, but if you wanted to leave it in, you can do. It literally makes no difference. Let's take a look at 3. There's no decimal point here, but we're going to have to imagine that there is one place value to the right, but it's not the number that moves, it is the imaginary decimal point, which means you actually end up with a 0 there. So we get 30. And the last one here, 5.4. We do have a decimal point this time. That decimal point moves to the other side, so we end up with 54. Let's try the remaining on dividing by 10. So we have 140. A lot of students will say, well, we just knock off the 0 on the end. But as you'll see in the next one, which is 85, where there is no 0, that isn't going to work. It is the imaginary decimal point. This time we're going one place value to the left. So it ends up after that 4. So you get 14.0, or you can just mark it as 14. Let's take a look at 8.85. Sorry. Oh, giving it away then. Imaginary decimal point goes in one place value to the left. So that gives us 8.5. The number 6, there's no decimal point, but imagine it's on the right hand side. We're then moving it to the left, which gives us 0.6. And now we have a tricky 0.2. We're just moving this decimal point one place value to the left, so it'll go before the 0, so we end up with 0.02. So you've just got to remember, when you're dividing by 10, you move one place value to the left. When you're timesing by 10, you're moving one place value to the right. That's really useful information. Let's try the first of our examples then. So we've got 63 divided by 0.7. We need to use this strategy given here, multiply both sides so that the decimal point is gone. And we're going to multiply to both sides, not just the one. So I'm going to start by timesing each side by 10, because I don't want to do 63 divided by 0.7. So that now becomes 630. And that 0.7, once we times it by 10, becomes 7. Now there's no decimal points, but I do have to carry out a division. How many times does 7 go into 6? It doesn't, but how many times does it go into 63? If you don't know that, obviously it's a non-calculated question. If you don't know the answer, you're going to have to start saying, right, well, 1 times 7 is 7, 2 times 7 is 14, 3 times 7 is 21. You're going to have to do a list, add on 7 each time until you get to the answer, which is 9. Now, we're not going to do 7 divided by 0. Well, if you do that, you get 0 anyway. So we get the answer 70. So the answer to 630 divided by 7. Oh, sorry. Let's go back. Oh, it's all gone wrong. I'm not starting again. Let's get my colour back. So the answer to 630 divided by 7, it equals 90. Well, so does 63 divided by 0.7. That also equals 90 as well. So multiply both sides. You can do it by 10 each time if you want. Make sure that decimal point is gone, and then the division, and then solve the question. Let's try another one. 3.5 divided by 0.05. So multiply both sides until we've got rid of the decimal point. Let's start with times in by 10 on each side. So 3.5 becomes 35. And 0.05, we move it one decimal, the decimal point, one place value to the right, so that gives us 0.5. But that's not enough because I still have a decimal point, so I'm going to times it by 10 again. I'm going to keep going. 35 becomes 350, and 0.5 now becomes 5. So now I'm trying to solve. Oh, I don't know why it's done that. It's made a nice little cross there. Now I'm trying to solve 350 divided by 5, which is a bit easier to do. Let's go back to purple. So let's do that division. Here we go. How many times does 5 go into 3? It doesn't. How many times does it go into 35? Well, the answer is 7. Of course, if you're not sure, you're going to have to build up a list until you get all the way to 35. 5 divided by 0 is going to give you a 0. So the answer to 350 divided by 5 equals 70. Well, it's also the answer to the original question as well, which is lovely. Let's try another one. Same strategy. If you fancy pausing it here and having a go, and then see if you're right. Let's start by timesing by 10. So this becomes 56. And 0.08 times by 10, it gives you 0.8. But that's not far enough. So let's times it by 10 again. So 56 becomes 560. And when we do 0.8 times 10, we get 8. So this is looking a bit better now. Let's do this. 560 divided by 8. How many times does 8 go into 56? I know the answer is 7, but you're going to have to build up that list and add it each time if you're not sure. And the last one will be 0. So we've got the same answer as before. So the answer to 560 divided by 8 is 70, and it's also the answer to the original question. Right, I was going to say our last example, but this is the second to last example, so why don't you pause the video, have a go at this one, and then I'm going to give you the answer now. I'm just going to go ahead and do it so you can see it. Times it by 10. I'm going to have to keep going. Keep going. Okay, now let's do the calculation. So the final answer is 700. Right, let's try the last one. This one is slightly different because the number on the left hand side is smaller than the one on the right. So this is like saying we've got 2 sweets, got to divide it by 5 people. If I times both sides by 10, that's not going to help me because I'm going to end up with 20 divided by 50, I can't divide 20 sweets by 50 people very well either. So we need a slightly different strategy. So let's get rid of all that working out there. So I've left some instructions in the top right hand corner. We're going to multiply only one of the sides so that it is bigger than the other. So this 2, I'm going to times it by 10 to give me 20. And I'm going to go ahead and do the calculation. So the answer is 4. But that's not the right answer. So step 2 is to then reverse the damage that we did. So when we times it by 10, now we've got to do the opposite and divide it by 10. So 4 divided by 10, imagine the place value is on the right hand side and it moves to the left one. So we end up with 0.4, and that is the answer to that one there. Okay, so about dividing decimals, the first 4 we looked at, we were multiplying so that the decimal point was gone. We just multiplied both sides and then we did a division. But the last one was slightly different because the number on the left, that 2, was too small, so we just multiplied that one side and then we reversed it at the end. That is the end of this video. Now you are ready to either do a bit of practice and submit it or get straight onto the Microsoft form for your submission for this week.